In Lesson 9.1, you created a website where users can log in with a username and password. This is called Forms Authentication. Forms Authentication is perfect for websites on the internet, but it can be cumbersome if you're making a site that is only going to be used on an internal network, known as an intranet site. You can use Windows Authentication to allow your site to recognize users by their Windows username and password when used on an internal network. This saves your users from having to remember multiple usernames and passwords. To begin this lesson, open the My Membership project from your Sample Files folder. Now open the ASP.NET Configuration utility, and you're going to change your site's authentication type to Windows Authentication. Click the Security tab, then click Select Authentication Type, and click From a Local Network. Then click Done. Because your site is now using Windows Authentication, you will no longer be able to manage users using the ASP.NET Configuration utility. You can't use both Windows and Forms Authentication at the same time. Also note that you will no longer be able to log in using the username and password that you created earlier. Close the ASP.NET Configuration utility now. Now view manage.aspx from the Account folder in your web browser. An error message may appear. By default, Visual Studio 2012 is configured to disable Windows Authentication. If no error message appears, you can skip over the next few steps. Close your web browser. Click My Membership in the Solution Explorer, and in the Properties window, set the Windows Authentication property to Enabled. Unless you set this property, Windows Authentication will always be disabled in Visual Studio 2012. Now view manage.aspx in your web browser again, and you may be prompted to enter your Windows username and password. If so, enter your login details and click OK. Your Windows username appears in the top right corner. Unfortunately, it's likely that this didn't happen automatically. Ideally, Windows Authentication should happen automatically. The web application should be able to detect the user's credentials without the user needing to type in their username and password. In practice, this can be difficult to achieve. Firstly, this behavior is only supported by Internet Explorer. Any other web browsers will ask the user to type in their credentials. Additionally, Internet Explorer will only log in automatically if the site is considered to be part of the intranet zone. Some versions of Internet Explorer don't recognize Visual Studio's virtual web server as part of the intranet zone, preventing automatic login. To fully enable automatic login, you must use Internet Explorer and may need to add localhost to the intranet zone within Internet Explorer's security settings. Considering the difficulty of fully enabling Windows Authentication, you might prefer to use Forms Authentication even in an intranet environment. It's interesting to note that although Forms Authentication is the preferred form of authentication on the Internet, it's still possible to use Windows authentication on Internet sites. If you use Windows authentication over the Internet, as opposed to on an intranet, visitors will be prompted to log in when they first attempt to access any page on the site. A visitor to a site using Windows authentication will have to provide a valid Windows username and password for the network that the site is hosted on. Using Windows authentication over the Internet is generally not a good idea. Close your web browser now, and you're going to switch back to Forms authentication. Open the ASP.NET Configuration utility, click the Security tab, click Select Authentication Type, select From the Internet, and click Done. The options to create and manage your Forms users become available again, and the existing user reappears. When you change the authentication mode in the ASP.NET Configuration utility, it actually changes a setting in web.config. Close your browser now, and open web.config. And if you find the authentication tag, you can see that it's set to mode equals forms. You can switch between authentication modes manually by switching between mode equals forms and mode equals Windows. Close Visual Studio now, and you've now completed Lesson 9.3. Change authentication types.